Welcome, Thomas, to METALLERIUM Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Tailgunner, this upcoming album, and the new album, and more things related to the metal world in general. So we are starting by asking how are you doing today, and how is the band during the last 3 years? Because your first album, Guns on for Fire, or for Hire, was released in 2023.
Yeah, no, I'm doing great, man. Just we got back from the European tour with Hammerfall this week. We had a festival here for Planet Rock in the UK and getting ready to start the UK tour on Friday. There's a new single, War in Heaven, out this Wednesday, and of course the new record comes out the same day as the tour. So busy, but I'm doing well. Thanks. Thanks for having me here.
Hmm. Great, great. So, and well, we'll start asking you when you started writing songs for this new Midnight Bliss. It was during transition for the previous one, perhaps some songs left in the box for the other one. Who knows?
I started to write this album as far back as late 2021, which was before the band launched, before anyone knew who we were. We don't carry songs over. I think if something isn't right for one record, it never gets used on another record. I think if there's a reason it wasn't right for the last
Hmm.
one, then it's probably not good enough for the next one. That's the attitude that we try to have. So it's been a long time in the making, this album.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Now, one thing that captured my attention specifically for this album is that you are releasing with one of the bigger labels, that is Napalm Records at this moment. So now, how it was there enter from? I think your previous label record, it was Fire Flash, and now you are with a bigger one, Napalm Records. How the things going with them?
Yeah, really great. We're very, very happy to be with Napalm. It's the label that we wanted to be with. And I think they're the world's biggest and best metal label for a reason. And the important thing for us is that they don't just have bands that made a name for themselves on a different label, in the 80s or 90s. They have a lot of bands that are newer that have gone from being club bands to arena level. And that's the career trajectory that we want to follow. And Napalm is the right place to do that. So very, very happy to have found a home there.
Mm, okay. I completely understand about this one. Now, well, thinking about more about the difference between your previous album and now your new year's album, because I saw that there is like in your previous album you tried to maintain the sound for the heavy metal from the 80s. Now with this Midnight you included in some parts like speed options or power options like or more a faster drummer according to I hear the complete album now. So if this decision it was like a constant decision, or it was more like something happened when you composed the album.
A little of both. I think you have to have the right amount of conscious choice in order to progress. And,
Mm.
you also then have to be in tune with what happens naturally because as an artist, you have to pay attention to what feels right. So the thing for us is we weren't trying to do anything too different to what we did in the first album. We were just trying to do it better and make every aspect better, the musicianship, the songwriting, the production. And I think the important thing is to innovate. And a lot of people forget that those bands in the 80s, Maiden, Priest, Motorhead, Venom, they were all pushing the genre forwards whilst not compromising on being true to heavy metal. And I think that's exactly what we're trying to do on this new record. Something different, something people haven't necessarily heard before, but still pure heavy metal and pure Tailgunner.
Okay. Now the name Midnight Bliss carries a lot of weight. So did your crew give you the nickname because of your reflexes during the night raids, or what? It's a painted, or you turn it and a warning to enemy interceptors?
It was the name Midnight Blitz was actually given to us by KK.
Mhm.
It was the last song we wrote for the record, and we knew something was missing. We knew we needed a signature track, a calling card for this record, an opener. And we obviously on the debut we had the title track Guns for Hire. It ties into the band name, and he encouraged us to do something on this record that equally tied into the name Tailgunner and suggested this title Midnight Blitz. And I wrote all the lyrics in one night after a show where I couldn't sleep, and it came together very naturally for us. So it was the right thing to do, I think, to write that song when we did and to make it the title track.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, okay. Oh, well, talking about more the promotion of this new album. So, what kind of promotion do you have for this one? Perhaps you will embark on more some tours, because you finalized to do a tour with Hammerfall, but now perhaps you first will come to Latin America and do a full tour. Obviously, perhaps it's Japan on the plans. Who knows? What kind of plans do you have for this new album and obviously for the Tailgunner?
Sure. I mean, yeah, as you say, we just finished a tour with Hammerfall, played a festival here in the UK. Then this week we start a UK tour opening for Chris Jericho's band Fozzy. We'll be busy all through festival season on a lot of the major festivals, which we're really excited for. And then there's a lot more touring to be announced that's booked for the rest of the year. So I think a lot of people will be very happy. But, you know, for anyone that doesn't see their country, their city, whatever this year, then this album cycle will, like it should be, you know, go on for a few years and we'll attempt to tour all around the world. So it's an exciting time.
Hmm. Okay, okay. Now, are taking a little more, are taking a little more about this, especially for this Midnight Bliss, sounds like a love letter to the new wave of British heavy metal. No? So, was the song especially written or captured to speed and chaos of a, for example, for World War II, Night Fighter Interception?
No, Midnight Blitz really is a song. I mean, it's a double entendre, and obviously people can take away the meaning of World War II and the Blitz and all that from it. And of course, it's inspired by it. But Midnight Blitz is actually a song about us as a band in the same way that Guns for Hire is about us as a band. I like those sort of songs a lot. I'm hugely inspired by Rose Tattoo's Rock and Roll Outlaw.
Mhm.
And I love those songs with, you know, the message of freedom and of what it means to be a rocker, be a metalhead, and especially in this day and age, and you know, to be unashamedly yourself. And that's what Midnight Blitz is. It's about the band, it's about our fans, it's about living your life on your own terms. And that's the sort of song that I think that, you know, should always be on a record. So it's very important to us.
Great, great. So now the twin guitar harmony in the middle of the track is blistering. So how did you balance that old school Iron Maiden influence with modern aggressive production?
It's not really a conscious thing. I think we just, you know, we create in the same way that we consume, and we don't just listen to Maiden. Of course, you know, we're big fans of Judas Priest, obviously, and they have some heavier stuff. You know, you look at Painkiller and even the mid '80s stuff on Defense of the Faith, Scream for Vengeance, and you know, also big fans of Halloween. They have some heavier parts. Megadeth, especially on Rust in Peace, are a huge influence for us. So we like to combine all of these different aspects into one thing, and I think that's why we've done so well, because people can hear a lot of the bands that they love. So it's really fun to write a heavy metal song, but to have, you know, these little sections that sound like thrash metal and stuff. So it's cool for
Hmm.
us.
Okay, okay. Now the vocals, especially mostly old tracks, require incredible range for your for your frontman. So how do you maintain that air raid siren power during all full set to for a full third set list?
Craig takes great care of his voice. He's very professional about it. Doesn't mean that we don't know how to have a good time, and we certainly do on the road. But you know, it's the basics really: enough sleep, vocal rest, drinking lots of water, and not having things that dehydrate you. Like I never knew, but that like caffeine dehydrates you, so he doesn't drink coffee or Red Bull or anything on the road. He just really works hard to do, you know, the best that he can to care for his voice, steam inhalation, and we pace the set list in a way I think that helps him. You know, he may disagree because we play a million miles an hour, but he really does every single thing possible to take care of his voice.
Hmm, okay, okay. Now, talking about more especially for the Tail Gunner name. So the band is named after a perilous military role and military bliss. So leans hard into the imaginary. So do you see the band as a musical historians, or are you are more focused on the adrenaline of the mythos?
Yeah, certainly the second one, you know, because you know it's cool to write songs about those sort of subjects, and war lends itself very, very well to heavy metal. But I think we got maybe a little bit unfairly pigeonholed on the first album. as being a band that's all we sing about, and it's not the case. And of course, there's some more of that on this new record, and there should be. It's such a great subject, but at
Mhm.
the same time, no, there's a lot of songs where we're not talking about war at all. So it'll be in there at times, and at other times it won't. But yeah, I don't really think of us as a sort of band with historic lyrics in the same way that Maiden so often are, and in the same way that obviously a band like Sabaton definitely are. I think we use that kind of thing when it's the right thing to do, and at other times we sing about ourselves, our own lives, movies, books, whatever inspires us.
Okay, so you guys are often cited as leaders in the heavy metal revolution. So do you feel like songs like Midnight Bliss or War in Heaven, Night Raids, or a lot of more are necessary rebellion against the more Polish or core genres dominating the charts today?
I think, you know, we can only do what we do and create music that we truly love in our hearts. And I think if we do that, then other people will enjoy it too. We don't really think about anything outside of heavy metal and how it's going to compete or stand up against it, because we just don't care. We're not interested in what's happening in the mainstream of rock and metal. All we care about is creating great heavy metal that we enjoy, and if it can hold its place on the radio or whatever alongside the more mainstream tracks, then that's great. But, you know, we're only looking to make the people that love this sort of music happy, and it's not about anyone else.
Hmm. Okay, your cover art and stage presence evoke the golden era of the heavy metal. So how much of the Midnight Bliss vibe is inspired by 80s cult cinema or classic war comics?
Yeah, so much of it. I mean, you know, there's so much to take from the 80s, and I think that's why it's been such an enduring inspiration for so many bands, whether in metal or not, because it was such a vibrant time for music and for culture, for all sorts of media. You know, we have a couple of songs on the record inspired by 80s movies, Tears and Rain with Blade Runner and Dead Until Dark until with the Lost Boys. And, you know, I think it's just such a great time in history to draw inspiration from. So it's not like we do it on purpose. It's just a lot of the time that's the best way to do it.
Hmm. Okay, okay. And other interviews, I also that a lot of people mention that you being the British heavy metal band for the new generation. So, do you feel a responsibility to keep the specific sound or Saxon or Iron Maiden or Judas Priest alive in your riffs? And also, you mentioned that you have a lot of influence from them.
I don't feel any responsibility because, you know, with Tailgunner, we're not Maiden, Priest, Saxon, you know. But the thing is, we will always sound like that because that's what we love. That's what we want to do. So I think, you know, people should have no fear. We're not suddenly going to turn into a metalcore band or something. We'll always sound like heavy metal because that's what we enjoy. But, you know, we're just trying to be Tailgunner. We're not trying to be anyone else. And it's, I think that serves us well, is we're not just worshipping Maiden, Priest, or Saxon. We're trying to innovate without compromising on who we are, so that we're not just worshipping at the altar of those bands, but we want to stand upon it too with our own identity.
Okay, okay, okay. Now, when you recorded the album, so did you try to keep things old school and raw, or did you use modern tech to make the Midnight Bliss sound even more explosive?
We used modern technology. I think it's you know, it can be heard in the production that this is not an album that sounds like some obscure release from 1982 or something. There's a lot of bands around these days that's how they sound, and I love that. I'm a huge fan of that, but we want to be able to be on the radio and to play these big mainstream festivals and whatever it is. And I think every so often in heavy metal, as long as, you know, there's bands that do create for the underground and do create to be raw, you need a band to come along that can remind the mainstream world of, you know, this style of music, this rock and metal style of music, that heavy metal is alive and well. But you don't get that unless you sometimes do have slightly more modern production, do have songs that can be played on the radio and things. So I think there's a balance, but you need that balance because this sort of music, it has to appear alongside these, more mainstream bands every so often to stay alive.
Okay, okay, I understand. So now, other one of the last questions for this interview, Thomas, is as you are the founder, I just been reading a lot of your works for for the Tailgunner and the Battle of the Britain. So inspiration specifically in your kind of music. So how this kind of situation or like the primary architect or as you are influence in the vision from the Tailgunner.
I think it's like I was saying before, it's just such a great subject to draw from lyrically. I think the thing with singing about war is it's not just in the top level literal sense of what you're singing about, what you're talking about. It's there's also so much to draw from on the human side of things and the emotional side of things because there are so many extremes in war and in those situations that they really can inspire lyrics. And we're not like Sabaton, we're not doing a history recount of where something was, who was involved or whatever. It's more about the human side of things. So it's a very interesting subject.
Okay, okay. So as the primary architect, how do you know when a riff is a tail gunner enough? Is there a specific goosebump moment you look for during rehearsals?
Yeah, I think all you can do, like I said, is create music that you truly, deep down in your heart, enjoy. And if you do that, then other people will too. So it's not about a specific style or sound. And I'm quite happy that we're a band that has the freedom to be diverse in what we create. Sometimes it's heavy metal, sometimes it's maybe power, there's a ballad, there's, some more commercial sound and stuff. But it's all truly us. And I think that's because we don't put anything out that we don't really believe in and it doesn't make us excited or happy. So that's all you can really do.
Okay, okay. Now, now that you've set the bar with this album, so what territory is Tom Hewson looking to conquer next? Are we staying in the skies, or is the blitz hitting somewhere even more intense?
I think we'll have to wait and see for what happens next. We're always writing and we're always trying to push forward. So it's an exciting thing to sometimes not know. And sometimes the songs tell you what to do. Sometimes you'll have something musically where it will inform the subjects that you sing about. And sometimes it's the other way around. You have the inspiration from somewhere and that informs the style of music that you write. So I think it's very exciting to not know sometimes, to not sit down and say, I'm going to write this type of song or I'm going to speak about this. Sometimes it's good to sit down with a guitar and just let it tell you what to do.
Okay, okay. And the last question from this interview, and just is for fun. So, if you have the opportunity to return back on time, and for example, a producer in UK or whatever part of the world said, so you will be open for a special act. So, and we are talking about for the Prime, for Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Venom. So, for you, which is the best concert or open act at that moment? Would you like to put Tail Gunner at that moment?
There are so many. I would love to have toured with Guns N' Roses during the Appetite for Destruction era. They're my favorite band. I think that's the greatest, especially at that time, the greatest rock and roll band ever. I would love to have opened for AC/DC like Judas Priest did on the Highway to Hell tour with Bon Scott. I think that would be incredible. The World Slavery tour, of course. Dio in Philadelphia at the Spectrum when he recorded the Sacred Heart concert film, one of the best live shows ever. So there's probably a million tours that I would want to open for, but it always remains the same. Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and let's say Halloween and Keeper's Era too. They're always the big foundations for me.
Okay, okay. Well, Thomas, we arrived at the sad moment of this interview. Thank you for your time. It was a tremendous pleasure to talk with you. This new album is The Midnight Bliss is a great one. We already did the review on our page, a great score there. So, and perhaps do you want to add something to your Latin American fans and obviously Metallerium followers?
Yeah, sure. I mean, check out the new record, Midnight Blitz, if you love metal like Maiden, Priest, Motorhead, Halloween, all the things I've spoken about, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And we hope to come to Latin America very, very soon. I'm sure it's on the cards. And thanks for being patient, and we'll get there.